Adana had always clung to the hope that love and patience would somehow change Abu Bakr, her abusive husband. From the very beginning of their marriage, he treated her like she was nothing more than an object of his control. Every minor mistake led to a beating, sometimes with a cane, sometimes a belt, and on the worst days, he would send her out into the streets to fend for herself. To make matters worse, Abu Bakr forced Adana to sleep with other men in the community for money, further stripping her of her dignity. Her life was a nightmare, and she had no one to turn to. Orphaned at 10 when her parents passed away, her siblings, seeing her as a burden, married her off to Abu Bakr to be rid of her. She had no children, no family, and no hope, only the small flicker of belief that maybe, just maybe, Abu Bakr would change if she waited long enough. But the years passed, and if anything, Abu Bakr only grew crueler. He began bringing women into their home, flaunting his infidelity in front of her. Her heart shattered a little more each day, but she endured, trapped by her circumstances and her broken dreams. One night, after another brutal beating, Abu Bakr sent her out again, ordering her to meet with another man for money. With tears in her eyes and bruises on her skin, Adana walked along the village path, her soul weary from years of torment. It was on this path that fate intervened. A voice called out to her, "Hey, miss!" She turned, startled, to see a tall, striking man standing by the side of the road. His name was Chidik, and his eyes reflected a gentleness and warmth that Adana had not seen in a long time. He was an engineer from the city, visiting the village for work, and as he looked at her, he could sense something was deeply wrong. Adana tried to keep walking, but Chidik wasn't one to ignore someone in distress. "Please wait," he said, stepping closer. "Are you all right?" She forced a smile and nodded, trying to hide the bruises. "I'm fine. I fell." But Chidik wasn't convinced. His eyes scanned her, noticing the faint marks on her arms and the sadness lingering in her expression. "That doesn't look like something from a fall," he said gently. Adana remained silent, her heart racing. She had never met a man like Chidik, someone who seemed to care, who didn't look at her with the cold cruelty she had grown used to. But she was afraid to tell him the truth, afraid of what might happen if Abu Bakr found out. Over the next few weeks, Chidik continued to run into Adana. Each time, he saw more of the pain she was trying to hide. He asked around discreetly and soon learned the full extent of her suffering. He was outraged that someone as kind and gentle as Adana could be treated so horribly. Finally, he confronted her. "You deserve better than this, Adana. You don't have to stay with him." Tears welled up in her eyes. For so long she had convinced herself that there was no escape. But in Chidik's words, she felt a glimmer of hope, a future she had never dared to imagine. With Chidik's support, Adana made the hardest decision of her life. She left Abu Bakr behind, walking away from the years of abuse and misery. It wasn't easy, but with Chidik by her side, she found the strength to start over. They married soon after, and for the first time, Adana experienced what it was like to be truly loved. Chidik treated her with tenderness and respect, offering her a life she had once thought impossible. Together, they built a home in the city, and their love blossomed in ways Adana had never dreamed. They were blessed with children, and every day, Adana thanked the stars for the life she now lived. Years later, word reached them that Abu Bakr had fallen on hard times. Broken and regretful, he came to beg for Adana's forgiveness. Despite everything he had put her through, Adana had grown beyond her past. With her heart full of love for her new life, she forgave him, not for his sake, but for hers. She refused to let the bitterness of the past poison the happiness she had found. And so, Adana lived in peace with Chidik and their children, surrounded by love, free from the chains of her past, and finally, blissfully happy.